The Plantation South, Section 3. Please be in your textbook on page 270, and your note-taking study guide, please be on page 120. The question that we're going to talk about is how did cotton affect the social and economic life of the South? Okay, because cotton was, it was King Cotton, right? Cotton Kingdom of the South. All right, so starting on page 120 in note-taking study guide, we'll start with the Southern economy. It was based on the cotton, and the impact of the cotton gin was it was a machine invented by Eli Whitney that sped the process of speeded the process of cotton. And the impact of this was it made cotton growing more profitable, it increased the use of value of slaves, and it led to huge growth in cotton production. And it was the greatest source of wealth in the United States. Cotton was the greatest single thing that made the United States wealthy. Unfortunately, the impact of this was slave labor. Okay, and it was more humane than the free labor because slaves didn't have to worry about unemployment. That's kind of what people that had slaves said. Oh, well, we provide food and shelter and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, the problem with that is that neglects the arguments against slavery, which they're not free to quit jobs and find others. And enslaved people suffered physical and other abuse from white owners. Okay, families were many times separated. They were not given education. There was no really path for them to become free. They were born as slaves and they died as slaves. Okay. African American life in the South was much different than African American life in the North, even though there was prejudice in the North as well. Restrictions placed on African Americans' rights. They did not have rights. They could only hold menial jobs. They were not allowed to attend public schools, vote, serve on juries, testify against white defendants in courts, and they were discouraged from traveling. Okay, so these are free African Americans. There were a few free African Americans who lived in the South, and they did not have the same rights as many as Americans should have had, and they faced hardships on plantations. These are slaves, physically harsh punishments for breaking rules. They had to perform hard labor, and their families were often separated. The types of work that African Americans did on the plantation, or those that were enslaved, that some were skilled workers, some worked in households, but most did heavy field work. Most were slaves in the field, mostly picking cotton by this time in American history. African American culture, they did preserve West African mostly customs, dance, and music, and they composed spirituals. Many of the spirituals that we have today were composed by slaves in the South, and there was a lot of call and response kind of spirituals as well, meaning one person would call something out and there would be a response from the crowd. And there were African Americans did resist slavery. Many just worked really slowly. They break farm equipment. Many flee to the north if they had the opportunity to do that. And there were rebellions from time to time as well. Unfortunately, slavery continued in the South up until the Civil War.